Good evening. To those of you who are with us here in person at Temple Emmanuel Stryker Center, and to, I'm told, something like 2,000 people who are online on Zoom. So thank you very much for being here with us. I'm Jody Rudoran, editor-in-chief of The Forward, and I am welcoming you here tonight because Gadi Levy, the brain and heart behind the Stryker Center's amazing programming, is a bit under the weather. Do not worry about him, he'll be fine. It's so amazing to be back here at the Stryker Center, the premier Jewish events venue in New York, or at least below 92nd Street. I have to be careful. No, seriously, one of the high points of my 2022 was that a clip of me was included in Stryker's sizzle reel. Because the reason is because, and this is what I said in the sizzle reel, Stryker, Temple Emmanuel, is hosting the most important conversations across our diverse Jewish communities. Yay, Stryker. And it has literally never been more important to come together in conversation. After the barbaric Hamas terror attack on October 7th, and amid the ongoing horrific violence in the region, and with 199 people still being held captive in Gaza, we considered canceling this event. As it happens, we at The Forward have had, this is my 7th public event since the attack. We just had a very crowded schedule, and we decided to do all of them. They were not the conversations that we thought we were going to have, that we planned on having, but they were critical conversations. They were emotional, and they were difficult. Our headliner tonight, the actor and activist Mandy Patinkin, has confronted a similar challenge over whether he should cancel his concert tour, and he did not. In times like this, Mandy said, we need to be together and celebrate being together and being alive and being a community who cares about healing the pain and the broken hearts and the lives that won't get to see their grandchildren, and finding a way out of all of this, finding a way out of this for all time, which is to find a way to make peace. Mandy said, I pray for peace. It is hard to see peace today from this fog of war. It's hard to think about the repair of a world that feels so broken, a world that feels like it's spinning out of control. And we will talk some about that tonight, of course. But we will also talk about what my friend and colleague Benyamin Cohen likes to call the world's favorite genius. Albert Einstein was the most famous scientist of all time. He was also a Jew committed to our central value of tikkun olam, of repairing our broken world. He was an ardent Zionist and an ardent pacifist, and we'll talk about that with our wonderful guests. But first, I'll just say a small word about The Forward. We were founded in 1897 as a Yiddish broadsheet newspaper on the Lower East Side. My predecessor editors taught generations of Eastern European Jews how to be American. And in the 20s, The Forward had more readers than the New York Times. We still publish Abyssal Yiddish today, but now we are 100% digital. We are a reader-supported, nonprofit newsroom that reaches about 1.5 million people a month on digital platforms across the country, across generations, across every divide in our communities. Today, this week, in this horrible war, we are working around the clock to provide clarity amid the chaos, to provide a vital public service, to provide a place for our communities to have challenging conversations. One of my key partners in that endeavor is Benyamin, host of our morning briefing, Forwarding the News. If you don't already get that, I think there may be a postcard on your chair to tell you how to sign up. Feel free to ignore me and take out your phone right now to sign up at forward.com/newsletters. It will be worth it. It is free, as is all of our coverage of the war. Okay, but sorry, I was talking about Benyamin. Benyamin, who really is like that brings you the news every morning, has a very quirky side hustle running the social media accounts of Albert Einstein, which means he has 20 million followers. And that side hustle led to this incredible book, The Einstein Effect, about all the ways that the world's favorite genius affects our everyday lives. And he interviewed scores of people about this while researching the book. And one of, well, his favorite, my favorite, was Mandy Patinkin. Mandy hardly needs an introduction. You know him from The Princess Bride. You know him from Evita. You know him from Chicago Hope. We were just talking about Chicago Hope. You know him from Instagram, where he has like almost as many followers as Albert Einstein, and from his Yiddish concert tours. And poignantly for tonight, you know him as Dr. Saul Berenson, leading the fight against terrorists in the Israeli TV series Homeland. You may not know that Mandy is also ambassador for the International Rescue Committee, which is the world's premier refugee organization. And you may not know that that organization was founded by, anyone? Yes, Albert Einstein. So that's some of what we're going to talk about tonight. Mandy and Benyamin, if you want to join me. I think they're busy talking backstage. Guys? There they go. And, like
God, don't put me in the middle. You be in the middle. You're the writer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So this is on. Great. We are going to talk for a little while, and then we're going to let you guys ask some questions, including you folks on Zoom. I think you know how to do it by now. Mandy, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, God.
And I do want to start by asking about the situation in Israel and Gaza. We were talking backstage about how you've been in Israel recently, not that recently, but to film Homeland, and you were also there as a kid on a kibbutz. I don't know, help us. Tell us how you've been absorbing the news, how you've been coping with it, what you've been thinking about, or maybe offer us some wisdom, maybe like what would Saul Berenson say in this situation?
Well, I'm going to first, I'll tell you what, I'll share some of my thoughts, but I'm here as a representative.
I think we remember that we're supposed to talk in the mic so that the Zoomers can hear us.
Pardon? Oh,
I need you to do that.
Forgot the main rule. This is for the people who are Zooming. Wherever you are. So I'm here because of the work I'm privileged to do with the International Rescue Committee that I began in 2015. And Sandy Borgman, my point person at the International Rescue Committee, introduced me to Benyamin and this wonderful, wonderful book. Where's that book? Called hold that book up. Called The Einstein Effect.
You can also take out your phones to order the book right now if you want.
Yeah. And he's not just a great writer, he also has chickens, and he gave me 6 eggs backstage. And they're not refrigerated or chemically or, special lights or anything to do what, I thought they do to eggs. And I said, what is okay, they're not refrigerated? He said, yeah, because in stores when the eggs come out, they wipe off all the stuff that's on the egg that's protective for the egg. So this has not happened to these eggs. So if there are especially good questions from anyone here or from you, Jody, you'll get an egg. So
I thought you were going to say you'd be throwing the eggs at him.
So back to the question at hand about Israel. So I'm a representative of the International Rescue Committee, and we knew that this question would be leading off things. Before I speak my own thoughts, I want to read what the organization asked me to say, and I love them. I love what they do. We wouldn't be here without Einstein and the International Rescue Committee and all of the welcoming that had taken place through many, many years. My grandfather came over in 1900, and we're here because of welcoming and the kind of work that IRC does and that Einstein made even better by birthing IRC. They asked me to say these words regarding the situation. The way war is conducted matters. The laws of armed conflict are set to protect civilians, aid workers, and civilian infrastructure in all conflict zones. These rules are not optional. We must all be careful not to normalize attacks against civilians. There's another piece that I read that David Miliband, the head of the International Rescue Committee, wrote, and he speaks about the international humanitarian law that we need to encourage. I have been on the board of directors of Peace Now for more years than I can remember. I will continue to work for peace harder now than I have ever done in the past. We all need to. I believe it's the only way out of this. But we are not here as individuals. We are here, in my humble opinion, as a human family. I am not a politician. I'm an entertainer. And I am a humanitician. That's what I know is humanity. And we have been watching the fragility of humanity all over the globe. Spin it and just put your finger down. The globe itself is in crisis. So it's a family matter. Later on, we'll talk about relatives and the theory of relativity, which I think Einstein really should have called it the theory of relatives. But our family, the Mandy Patinkin family, all got together after this most recent horror that we're all living. And we felt we wanted to say something as a family, and we put this out on our social media. And I don't have it memorized, but I want to say what we all constructed as a family. Our hearts are broken. We cannot imagine what it is to live with terror on our doorstep, and the combination of grief and pain and fear and rage when families are callously murdered or taken hostage. For millennia, our people have had to flee and had to live with terror. It's not lost on us that the victims of war are every person on either side who simply long for a home and for the sense of safety and belonging that all of us long for. War asks us to dehumanize the other. So what we're focusing on is the humanity of every woman, man, and child who didn't ask for this, who didn't do this, who will not grow old to see their grandchildren grow up as we are able to see ours. We stand for peace and believe it is the only path by which we will ever get out of this. And I will just add that Peace Now, a wonderful organization that works tirelessly for the peace process, has a statement that I encourage you to go to their website and look it up, that was released yesterday prior to the Biden visit, that essentially asks us all, everyone, all over this fragile planet, to de-escalate the violence, the hatred, as much as possible, and to start everything anyone can think of to put an end to this. I remember years ago I said to Mark Rosenblum, who was then the head of Peace Now, after he'd explained 100 times to me the Oslo peace process, other efforts, his whole life had been spent being the foremost scholar on the peace process. And I said, Mark, I'm an entertainer. I just can't get a hold of all the details here. What works, what doesn't work, what's happened, what hasn't happened, what the problems are. When will this end? And the man whose life is devoted to the study of this process said to me, when I said, when will this end? He said these words, when they have exhausted the killing. Well, in my view, that moment has come. And my son has a statement in Spanish that I only know in English, that our family uses as part of our prayer. Nothing is so bad that good cannot come from it. And I hope that what comes from this tragedy that the whole world is experiencing, at what some think is the epicenter of humanity, is the beginning of our way toward peace, living together side by side as brothers and sisters, as members of the human race, taking care of things so that the unborn children will not know what we know. Amen.
We should just go.
Yeah.
That was. Thank you. Wow. Let's see. Any questions? No. Okay. Sorry, I have a bit of a cough. Anyway, Benyamin. Thank you, Mandy. I just want to sit here and listen to you for the hour, but I'm going to do my job and ask Benyamin some questions too. You have a lot of relatives and friends in Israel. Your dad and stepmom, thankfully, were actually in the U.S. before the attack, and you convinced them to stay, and they're now here with us in the front row. So we just want to say that we're thinking of your neighbors and all of the people there, and we're glad you're here. Silver lining alert, I guess. I said in the introduction, Einstein was a major Zionist and an ardent pacifist, and desperately concerned, as Mandy is, with refugees. And of course, we are in another refugee crisis now, generationally. And I guess he was a person who helped save thousands of people, refugees from World War II. So now I want to ask you, I know this is like your least favorite kind of question, but since you are Albert Einstein's 21st century voice, I just want to know, what would he say about what we're watching?
I mean, I can't speak for a Nobel Prize winner, but I'll pretend. You know, he called himself a militant pacifist, and you know, I think his politics. I think he just couldn't understand the othering, what you were talking about. You know, when he came to the United States, and you know, he was trying to help his fellow German Jews escape, and then he saw, for example, racism that was happening in the United States, and he's like, you know, I just left one place where they were othering a community, and I come to the United States, and they're othering a community here, and it really boggled his mind. I think he would be, two things. I think he'd be depressed to see what's going on today, but I think he would be, like Mandy, very outspoken to try to bring peace and to try to bring people from other sides to the table.
Mandy, tell us a little bit how you got involved in the Rescue Committee and how you got involved in Peace Now, but two, you know, related but also different organizations, why those organizations have been such a major part of your activism.
Well, I'm a Chicago-born Jew which...
You're Jewish?
Yes, I'm Jewish, which I always used to make a joke. If you're a conservative Jew from Chicago, that makes you a Reformed Jew in New York and an Orthodox Jew in California.
Sounds
So,
right.
but I'm Jewish. I went to synagogue from the time I can remember. I was in the boys' choir from 7 years old on. I heard the rabbi make a million sermons. I went to Hebrew-speaking camp only because all my friends went there, but I found a way not to have to go to class. And I did Fiddler on the Roof all in Hebrew when I was like 12 years old.
Did you play Tevye?
I played Tevye, yeah.
No,
I can't. And so...
Lu Hayiti Ashir, I think is how you...
Lu Hayiti Rothschild. That's it. And so but Tikkun Olam is the banner of what I carry with me to repair the world. The climate change alone will just end all life as we know it if we don't attend to that. And then the repair for humanity and conflict all over is endless. And so I first began working with the peace process many years ago, well over 30 when I started doing concerts and when other events would take place. I would do other things when there was problems with the gay community, and they were trying to create restrictions of Amendment 2, and I would do a concert, and then I'd put a box on the stage at the end of the concert, and I'd try to raise money for the ACLU that would put out a booklet in all 50 states to say, if you have a gay child or a gay nephew or a gay cousin or a gay anything, they won't be able to get a job or a home or equal rights if we don't take care of this. So I said, I know you paid a lot of money for the concert, but put whatever you can. And then every now and then my kids were little, I'd bring them out and have them hold the box, and that worked. And we raised a lot of money, and $50,000, and made that book that went to all these places. And so I was always thinking about those things. That's what Joe Papp taught me how to do. That's what my wife taught me how to do. That's what my family taught me how to do. That's what the little blue box I grew up with, in Judaism taught me how to do. I personally don't take care of organizations that just serve Jews, because I know that there will always be organizations that just serve gay people, just serve Jews, just serve African Americans, just serve Catholics, just serve. And I have a finite amount of time and energy in this precious life we all have, so I choose things that take care of everyone, as many people as possible across the boards. And I wanted this peace to happen. And I spent almost 30-some years, more than that, as part of Peace Now, and I'd almost never see the needle move. Every time there'd be an event, a horrible thing would happen, and we'd go to that evening, and it would be all about what just happened that afternoon or that morning or 3 days ago. And I went to, but I pressed on, and I said, yes, I'll be a member of the board of directors, because I think Peace Now is, among many other organizations, there's Neva Shalom, there's the Abraham Fund, there's all kinds of wonderful organizations that I'm on the board of the Arava Institute of Environmental Studies, which is right before the Red Sea. It's an extraordinary organization with Arabs and Jews and Palestinian Arabs and Israeli Arabs and Americans, people from Jordan, all kinds of countries, and they work on the environment. And I've been there, and it's extraordinary. They have the oldest date tree there. They do the most extraordinary work because they say air and water have no border crossings. And they have all their problems right in front of them. A lot of times you and I you're an Arab Palestinian or an Arab from Gaza or West Bank, and I'm from an Israeli from Tel Aviv, and an action happens, and I have to go serve the army, and we're good friends, and I have to go to an area where your family is or your loved one is, and they deal with this all the time. because they believe in this organization, that these young people, in many cases, they're graduates, they're lawyers, they have coffee shops and other places, but they believe they're the future leaders of their countries, their communities, and that they're bonding in this environment, and that they will have relationships that can do good things in the future. And so when 2015 came, what was the question about?
How did you get involved with Peace Now and the IRC?
Yeah, Peace Now. So Peace Now
and the
was
IRC. You're going to get to
so
the
the
IRC now.
Peace Now thing was happening. It's ongoing. It continues to happen. We're at it all the time. Go to their website, read their words. They're extraordinary in this time. They talk the way I need to hear people talk. They take it all in. They have incredibly articulate people that are trying to get the right thing to take place so that we can get past this moment and really take care of humanity and eliminate this problem forever and learn how to live together. So it was 2015 with the International Rescue Committee. I arrived in Berlin to do Homeland, I think the 5th season, and 125,000 refugees were trying to get across the Balkan route from Syria to, of all places, Germany. And I want to say to everybody listening anywhere in this planet that the irony was those 125,000 Syrian refugees are going to all places in the world, Germany, where Mr. Albert Einstein, Doctor, thank you. Sorry. Where Dr. Einstein, where Al fled from persecution. And look how Germany changed. Who would have ever thought that that would be the country that was one of the places on the planet that was teaching us how to welcome fellow human beings? Things can change. It's extraordinary to go to Germany and view all the ways that they have changed. Of course, there are problems. There's troubles everywhere. It's never going to go away. Don't be naive. But they have changed. So that gives me great hope. And I met Sandy and the International Rescue Committee because I was in a fictional world where the first episode of that 5th season was in a Syrian refugee camp. And I saw these photos that were my ancestors walking with kids that would have been my kids and in these long lines trying to get across the Balkan route to Germany. And I thought, I need to be with these people. I'm doing this fictional show and this real thing is happening. I want to walk with them and give them water. And I called Ruth Messenger and I said, how do I get there? What do I do? She said, you call the International Rescue Committee and you go with them. I said, okay, and I did, and I said right away, look, I'd like to, I don't want to do a celebrity thing, and I'd like to ask my sons to come, and so, and she said, don't worry, you don't have to do that, just come, and you know, I want to walk with these people and give them water and be there for them, and both my sons called me because I wrote them a note saying I'd love you to come with me separately. They didn't call me together. And each one individually said to me, Dad, if there was ever a time when you needed to use your celebrity, this is it. Let them take pictures. Let them take you wherever you want. Interview people. Talk to people. Like Farad Nouri, this beautiful 10-year-old Afghan little boy who walked through the mountains to safety with his family. In Serbia, we met him. We sat on a bench outside, and I said, Farad, if we're lucky, some people will see our conversation. What do you want people to know? He said, kindness. Refugees need kindness. Not just for me, he said, but refugees everywhere. And if I could just talk to Albert and have him figure out an equation that would teach us how to teach people to be kind and stop the killing, the hatred, and the violence. Start the loving, the compassion, the forgiveness, and the understanding, and the listening. then I'd be the luckiest person on earth. And I've been working with the International Rescue Committee ever since, and their work moves me. I wouldn't be here if what they stand for wasn't happening and hadn't welcomed my Grandpa Max. Oh, I want to say something, but I want to say something. Let's get a little unserious for a minute. I'm here because Sandy asked me if I would be interviewed by Benyamin. Why, I said, because he's doing a book on Albert Einstein. I said, excuse me? What are you talking about? She wants to talk to you because Einstein, founded the International Rescue Committee in 1933, and to get people out of Germany and to do this work. And so we had this wonderful conversation. I met over Zoom. It was pandemic time. We have a long Zoom call, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought it would just be, I didn't know what I didn't have a thought. It was just, we do a lot of outreach for IRC, for the International Rescue Committee, and just another event, talking to someone to let people know about the refugee crisis and try to raise awareness and funds for the International Rescue Committee. And then the book comes out, and Benyamin or Sandy, somebody sends it to me.
I gave it to you in the back of a concert.
Yes, you came to a concert in somewhere in
Pittsburgh.
Zelienople,
the Constantinople of
Pennsylvania.
That's right. So he comes back and he's waiting, and he hands me this book. And I said thanks. I put it in my bag, and I don't know if I'm going to read this book. I mean, I got enough trouble trying to remember the words that I'm singing, and I need to, I'm not a reader like my wife, and it's, I'll read a stack this big if it's for a job that I'm doing or a part, or if I'm, a part of history or something I'm playing, I'll read every book ever printed. But just for my pleasure, I never read. I take walks, I play with my dog, and I learn songs. And so I'm reading the book, and I'm loving it. All of a sudden, I'm having trouble sleeping sometimes, and it's putting me to sleep in a wonderful way. Every night.
Clarify that, yeah.
I save it. I just read a few pages at a time, and it's like, and I'm falling asleep reading the book, and I'm starting to finally get some sleep, and I'm loving it, and I just can't get enough of this book. And then I get to some chapter in this book, and it's about me. And I'm thinking, you've just lost me. You've lost all credibility that you've written a book about Einstein and you've included me. You're a failure, But being an egomaniac, I finished the chapter. And I loved reading it, and I was unbelievably flattered, and I couldn't believe the creative fellow you are to take that conversation we had and weave it into a chapter in a fascinating book that is, to me, you're a gifted writer, but you're really an entertainer. I tried to read, I'm not going to say which book, but I tried to read 2 other Einstein books in my time. I love biographies, and I couldn't get through them. And I was furious when this book finished. When I finished reading the last page, I was like, where's the next part? Because it was so fun. It was funny. I could not get over what Benyamin did, where he went, who he met, what he shared with us of what Einstein did, that I want to shut up now and you tell him some of these wild things, because they're incredible.
Can we not put that on Amazon? Mandy Patinkin says it put me to sleep.
That's how you sell a book, right, folks?
A few minutes ago, I was wondering what we were doing here, but now I will ask you about the book. So tell us. So, you are also Jewish.
Yes.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit both about how you came to be something of an Einstein obsessive, and also I think you told me that you have in your house 36 Einstein book. How many books about Einstein?
Probably around there. A lot of Einstein books.
And when you look on Amazon, you see how many Einstein things?
Over 700 books about Einstein.
700 books about Einstein.
which two you read.
So why did the world...
You only need
No, but seriously, like, this one is different because it puts you to sleep in a good way.
Yeah.
Tell us, how is it different? Why did we need this 701st Einstein book?
It's different because I am not a historian. I am not a scientist. I like to call myself a likable idiot.
Likable is to... No.
Right. And I'm probably just like everyone else in this room. I didn't know much about Einstein beyond what our teachers taught us in school, you know, the Nobel Prize, the theory of relativity, equals mc squared, whatever that means. And so what, to me, this book is for all of us, all the average Joes out there, to show how Einstein is relevant to our daily lives. And so, yeah, there is some science. Those were the hardest chapters to write. But there's also sections on the International Rescue Committee and how Einstein was a humanitarian and how he's just relevant in so many other ways that touch our...
Like how we get pizza.
Yeah, so many people don't know this. Oh, hey, Melissa. Many people don't know this. Einstein helped invent, his theory of relativity laid the foundation for GPS, which we all use. Many of us probably used it to get here tonight. Without going into the science, I'll go into it for 10 seconds. The Earth is spinning, the satellite in space is moving, and you're in your car moving, and Einstein's equation kind of put all those three items together so that we can get from point A to point B. So when you get an Amazon delivery, when you get a pizza delivered to your house, the driver found your house thanks to Albert Einstein. Yeah.
Amazing. So what I really want to do now is ask you, Benyamin, to explain standing on 1 foot, E equals MC squared, and ask Mandy to sing us more songs from Hebrew Fiddler. But I am not going to do that. We'll save that for the green room backstage. But no, I'm not going to do either of those things. Instead, I'm going to ask you, but I'm interested, like Benyamin, you spent your career in journalism, as I have. You writing short articles, now you write this amazing newsletter, and this is your second book. So I'm interested in how you think of those different forms, sort of why you like both of them, what's different about them. And Mandy, you'll have a little more time to think about it, but you're a star of stage and screen, small screen, big screen, and you keep doing these concerts. You could do anything you want, and yet you're at the Constantinople of Pennsylvania. So I'm interested in how you think about the different forms of your art, both of you. So we can start with Benyamin.
So it's interesting you say they're different forms. I look at them all as the same form. I got into journalism, I don't know, my family's in the front row, I don't know if they remember this, but at the dinner table when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I would do a fake newscast at the dinner table. And I would say, so-and-so had a bris today. And, I'd be I'd be the Dan Rather of the house.
Also movie reviews you said you did, right?
Yeah. So to me, it was always about sharing something interesting. And so to me, it really doesn't matter what the medium is, whether it's a long article, it's a magazine article, it's a book, it's a newsletter. It's all motivated by the same thing as, I can't wait to tell you this interesting thing. And so that's really what this book is here's a gazillion interesting things about Albert Einstein that everyone, I think, can relate to, and you don't have to be a physicist. And I'm excited to share that with you, and that's the book is an embodiment.
And so, Mandy, when you were 6 years old, you were singing Yiddish songs at the dinner table?
But wait, you didn't. You left out the fact you tracked down the guy who stole Einstein's brain.
Yes.
I mean, who does that? and then you had tell us about that.
Yeah,
that was my favorite.
Benyamin himself has held Einstein's brain.
So, this was to me one of the most fascinating things I learned about Einstein was that, not to gross everybody out, hopefully you had dinner already, but at Einstein's autopsy, the pathologist stole Einstein's brain. I like to call it the greatest heist of the 20th century. And he kept it in a beer cooler in his basement for decades. And it wasn't this is a true story. It wasn't he wasn't doing it because he was weird guy. Maybe he was a weird guy, but he wanted to study Einstein's brain to see what made it so special. What could we learn about genius? Was his brain unique in some way? The problem was he's not a brain doctor, And so he would just cut up little pieces of it and send it in the mail to brain researchers. And there are pieces of Albert Einstein's brain all over the world. Maybe not in Zelienople, Pennsylvania, but
You never know.
you never know. Anyway, the guy has most of the brain in a bunch of mason jars, and he passed away in 2007. He gave it to a different doctor, and I met that doctor, and he let me. I held the jars of Einstein, of Einstein's brain.
You know, when I met...
Yeah, Mandy, I bet if you want a piece of the brain, you could probably get one.
I could put you in
famous.
touch. I know a guy.
It's all who you know, isn't it? But when I love this book so much, and I'm not, honestly, nobody's paying me to say this. I loved it so much that I called him, and I found out how to get a hold of him. I called him, and I said, I've never done this with any other author, and I've liked a lot of books, but I said, I want to be your friend, because he talked about really interesting stuff, and he did for me the most important thing that I need every second of my being, which is he made me laugh. You know, he's not like the greatest comedian sitting here, but when you read what he puts together and how he tells a story and the intensity of his research and his focus and his quirky view of humanity through whatever journey you choose to tell. This was Einstein, and the other book was a different ride. It's a blast. Your question about say the question again? Do you remember?
All your different venues: stage, screen, concert, TV, movies. Like, why do you do the different? Like, how do they? Different parts of your brain, different parts of your.
No. It's not. I hated school, and my sister was perfect in school. And I made a mistake. Sometimes I'd do good on the first test, and then I was bored to death because it didn't have anything that spoke to me. And then the teachers would say to my parents, he's being lazy and this. And then 7 years old, I got in the boys' choir at synagogue. And I would sing Sim Shalom or whatever in the choir. And the little ladies would come and pinch me on the cheek and say, what a Shana Boychuk. And I got attention. And I liked it. And it made me feel like I'm not an idiot and I'm not bad. And so I did that. And over time, it's become a little less silly and a little more understood. In a piece that I was so lucky to be a part of called Sunday in the Park with George that James Lapine wrote. Thanks. James Lapine wrote the book and directed it, and Steve Sondheim wrote the music and lyrics. He has my character, George Seurat, say over and over again, connect, George, connect. And I don't know how I'll be buried. I can't deal with making those decisions. My kids know that maybe I'll want, a classic Orthodox way, with the white shroud and the pine box, and I can't deal with going into an oven. I can't deal with a lot of it. I don't want to think about it, and I'm not going to be here for it. So I'm leaving it up to the kids, and they can figure it out. But. Why did I bring that up? Wait a minute, I forgot for a second. Oh, I know. If there's... Connect. So a buddy of mine, it was actually my wife's boyfriend, Michael Ewell, before she met me. Michael Ewell he was a Vietnam vet, started an organization called Citizen Soldier. And I met him just as my wife and I started. I was, sort of the rebound guy. And I met this amazing person. He blew the whistle on Agent Orange, him and his partner. And he's a serious guy. And I loved him. And I thought, what are you doing with me? What's the connection between this guy and me? And I still don't understand that one. But we just went to visit him. We went on a leaf peeping trip up through,
You and your wife went to visit your wife's old boyfriend?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, they were all at our wedding. All her old boyfriends were at the wedding. And You don't make this stuff up. And so our dearest friends from England came over, Jenny and Anton, and we'd been waiting 3 years because of the pandemic to do it. So we went all the way up to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and then all the way back down. And in Maine is where Michael lives. And so they knew him because my wife was with him when they were in Morocco, and he was going nuts, and she needed to break, and she saw these two people speaking English, and she ran over to him and said, please rescue me, my boyfriend's driving me crazy. And then they became lifelong friends, and then I joined, and so it's a whole group of people. And they wanted to visit with Michael.
Does anyone have any idea what he's talking about? I mean, am I like...
So Michael takes us, we go out, we're in Maine, so, I'm not kosher, and I said, we got to get some lobster. So we go get this lobster, and we're all sitting eating lobster, and then we're going back home because we're going to take off, and he's going home, and wait a minute, he says. We passed by a church or something. He said, well, this is where Susan and I got married, his current wife. And oh, great. He said, wait, I got to show you guys something. And he pulls around, he goes around, he pulls in this place, and it's beautiful. And then all of a sudden, we're in a cemetery. And it's a beautiful cemetery with a lot of American flags where vets are. And you get a flag and you get a plaque if you're a vet in a cemetery. And he says, I want to show you something. And there he takes us to a beautiful stone in the ground, and it says Michael Ewell, and then Susan Connolly underneath, and it's got a quill because he's a writer, he's a travel writer. And he says, look at the view. Pretty nice, huh? I have never had anybody, one other time I had Jaime Gates take me to a cemetery in Florida. Jaime Gates was the property man at the Morosco Theater for, I think, 45 or 35 years. He did 17 Pulitzer Prize winning plays, including Death of a Salesman, Voice of a Turtle, and he would always say to me backstage, and we'd be underneath, he'd be teaching me how to play klobyash, and he'd say, you got a cue? And I said, no, I don't have a cue. He said, the only way to miss a cue is to get into a conversation. I said, I don't have a cue. And he would go to the back room, and he'd come back, zipping up his fly and showing me. Then he's got a leaflet of photographs where he'd show me that he had a Seder. He would have a Seder underneath the stage at the Morosco Theater, and all the famous people that would be at the Seder. Now I can't remember why I told you about Jaime Gates. Yeah, because I filmed Jaime. I had two buddies of mine, and we went and filmed Jaime, and he went to Florida, and he says, wait, these are my buddies. And they were longshoremen or taxi drivers or truck drivers, and the four of us go down to the cemetery, and they show me their plots. And they've all got nice plots, beautiful view, and they're all together. So twice I've had this experience. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, now this is exactly what I thought we'd be talking about.
That's what this book brings out in me.
All right, well,
it's a very rambling book.
Mandy, you talked about...
I beg everyone's forgiveness for inviting me.
You know what?
I don't belong here. I don't belong in this book. I apologize.
You talked about that Benyamin made you laugh and how important that is, and I have to say it's been really nice to hear people laugh tonight, because I don't think a lot of us have been doing a lot of laughing. So I'm going to open it up now to questions from... from the audience. If anyone has a question, Ari has a microphone, and if anyone on Zoom has a question. Meanwhile, I will point out two fun facts, which is you may have noticed that both Mandy and I are wearing Hoka sneakers.
Oh, I didn't know. Good for you.
And you might not know that Mandy and I have the same birthday. Not the same year, but it's November 30th. It's only, how many shopping days till our birthday? Like 6 weeks?
Feel free to send us gifts.
Yeah, send us gifts. You can send us the same gift, or you can just send your gifts to me, and I'll make sure Mandy gets them. I thought it was very funny, Benyamin, too, that Mandy's like, so I tracked him down. I love the idea that Mandy Patinkin is having a hard time finding you.
You know what I actually would love, if there are people listening at home and here? Find a peace process that you love and admire. An organization like the International Rescue Committee or Peace Now. Go online, read about them and the work they do, and make a donation for our birthdays. That would really make me happy. You couldn't give me a better present.
Or you could support independent Jewish journalism and do the same at the Forward. But anyway, Ari, how's the question?
You got it.
Yes, this is more of a comment than a question for Mandy.
Where are you? Oh, there you are. Yeah.
I'm here. You have described yourself as an entertainer. Now, an entertainer, I appreciate, but I think that you are more than just an entertainer. I think you're a great musical artist. You mentioned Sunday in the Park with George, and I recall with chills when you did Look, I Made a Hat where there never was a hat. You brought the painting of Georges Seurat to life beyond what it ever could otherwise be. It was just incredible. And you did that originally at the Playwrights Horizons, where Sunday in the Park with George was just one act. And that was more than 40 years ago. That was July of 1983.
Correct. My God.
Can you sing us a little of I Made a Hat?
For an old guy, you got all your marbles, you know?
Can we get a little I Made a Hat?
What?
Give us a little of I Made a Hat.
I'll tell you a story about it.
And then I want to
Please,
move
I'll shut
You
up.
got
Go
more.
ahead. Go ahead. If you're going to keep saying all these nice things, please
If
continue.
you want to talk about Benyamin and I, it's okay
Yes,
to say nice
I
things.
want to mention about Einstein to show
Mention
how
what?
old I am.
You want to mention what?
Einstein.
About Albert
Einstein.
Einstein.
Yes, please.
In 1955, I was a junior at Princeton University, and there was a paper due in April where I was at the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs. Woodrow Wilson's name is no longer part of that because he was a racist and an anti-Semite. So it's now the School of Public and International Affairs. And I was late in getting the paper. My sister was up all night typing the paper while I was writing. Those are days before internet. And on the way back, as I was driving back to Princeton, on the radio, Albert Einstein has died at Princeton Hospital. And I remember slowing down and saying to myself, what my paper means is meaningless compared to the profundity of the fact that Einstein is no longer alive. And when I got to Princeton, and Marva Bernstein was the dean of the school, and when I walked in, because they took a half grade off for every half hour you were late, and I was late, and he looked at me and he knew exactly what I was about to say and said, "Don't worry about it."
Thank you. Thank you. I think you got something on the death of Einstein?
Einstein helped you get a good grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, the Einstein effect, it's everywhere. Gentleman in the plaid shirt has a question. Very eager. Maybe. Oh,
sorry.
No, you go first. Great.
It's more of one comment and one question.
All right, let's do questions. Go ahead.
Well, but this is important to me. So for Mr. Patinkin, I used to watch Criminal Minds with my mom, and just seeing you in person reminds me of those good memories with my mom, so thank you. And so for Mr. Cohen, my question is more practical. How did you kind of gather all your thoughts, and what was your process in writing your book? And thank you.
It's all about, I'm a journalist and I spend most of my time writing articles on a day-to-day basis. So there's a term in journalism called getting string. Is that what it's called? Gathering string. I'm still learning. Where you get little pieces, because there's no way you can you're going to stare at a blank screen if you're trying to write a 300-page book. It's just to start gathering string, gather stories. And so that's how I started it. And I've been doing it for 6 years with Einstein. And this is the result of it. So, yeah. And
you have 20 million followers on this Einstein website, right?
Einstein has 20 million followers on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Einstein has more Facebook fans than Tom Hanks and the Rolling Stones and you.
And you are the voice of Einstein on these sites.
But
Is
not
that correct?
Without a German accent, yes.
I mean,
Amazing.
come on. Who gets to do
when
that?
you read the book, you're going to see it is. So Mandy talked about his chapter. I mean, it really is a collection of individual stories of ways in which Einstein affected affects our current world. And it's also an interesting collection. I mean, I think Mandy's a little bit of an exception here, but there are a number of real obsessives in the book, including the author of the book, yeah. But, and so like there's the guy who's holding on to Einstein's brain, of course, but there's other people who've been working at a specific aspect of something for a really long time, and they're really quirky. And so it's sort of a series of both profiles of those quirky characters and kind of meditations and investigations, really, of pieces of Einstein's, both his own personal history and his is it discoveries? Is that the right word? His inventions, his discoveries, his...
Well, I mean, it's all about his legacy.
Yeah, so but it pulls out, when Benyamin talks about gathering string over time, and the book really really unfolds as a series of sort of encounters and investigations of like, here's this thing that Einstein did, let's like follow the trail to the end of that thing. And that's one of the reasons I think it's such a good read.
Also, Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, is it Uganda where we were in the Sudanese border, where the yellow wall was, where that photograph, and I'm sitting right under it, and Einstein's words are on it, a life, make sure I get this right, a life lived for others is a life worth living. And that's on the wall in Africa, and I mean, if you traveled anywhere with the International Rescue Committee to these war zones, to these refugee camps, to witness these women who have watched their families be tortured in the most unimaginable ways that you could ever hear, and all kinds of horrible things happen, but they never give up, and they build their home with their own hands and walk 2 hours a day to take their kid to school and 2 hours back to bring them home and 2 hours to stand in line for food, that this man knew that this work needed to be attended to, and created an organization that is just life-changing. We became dear friends with someone. There are 59 offices around the globe, I believe, of International Rescue Committee, and I think 28 in the United States in different places. You can go to New Jersey, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, is it? And we made a very dear friend there who's with the IRC from Afghanistan, and they're a young couple having a baby, and we're working with them diligently to try to get their parents to come here. And it's just extraordinary what they do for people's lives and how they welcome. I can't help but think of Albert Einstein with his intellect and gift, fleeing for his life, a $5,000 bounty on his head, and coming here. We can't imagine these things because we live in this place where we hear and we see, but thank God we're not really living it. Some may be living it because of family and relatives around the world and choose the location where the conflict is horrific. But he lived it, and then he came here, as Benyamin said, and wanted to help African Americans and other groups that were persecuted here. And he couldn't just sit on his laurels and continue without giving back.
We're going to go to the
And I
gentleman.
wanted to thank you, sir. Pardon me. Thank you for your beautiful comments. Thank you.
We're going to go to the gentleman in the plaid shirt, but I just want to say, I just got a brainstorm for you, which is we're going to turn this into a movie, but Einstein's going to be a character in it, and Mandy's going to play Einstein. He's got the beard going, he just needs the hair. And it can be like Einstein's like, you're still going to talk about the modern effects, but you're going to have Einstein in it, leading you to your quirk. What do you think? Can we do this? Can
The
you sell it
reason
for us?
I know that I could do that is because this is a new hiking shirt that I bought, and I looked in the mirror and I noticed already I had a stain here and here. I can't wear something for more than 40 seconds without getting something on it.
And that's what you'll learn about Einstein in the book.
That's what
He wore
you learn about
pajamas.
Einstein.
Yes.
He dressed worse than me.
Schlub.
It was just, I love how he dressed. He gives us all license not to worry about our hair or our clothing and just to be the best person ever. And he did his best. We all have our flaws. We've heard about some of his, but, that's how it goes, folks.
Great. Yes, gentleman in the plaid shirt with may or may not have a stain on it.
Okay. So for Benjamin, I have a couple of quick questions. One is, how did you first get interested in Einstein? I don't think, you may have said it an hour ago, and there have been enough distractions.
Or Mandy.
I'm interested in Benjamin's answer.
Okay.
Second answer, the second thing I'd like you to speak about is you keep an eye on this internet, the website or the Twitter account, whatever it is. Maybe talk about some of the more interesting things that have happened in that recently, how often you get things, and how you tend to respond to things.
So I actually got interested in Einstein because of the brain story. I read about it when I was in college, and it just kind of sparked, what else don't I know about Einstein? And so I started making Einstein my beat as a reporter. I just started writing. Anytime I set up a Google alert, so anytime Einstein was in the news, his pipe was for auction or anything. Scientific discoveries. And so I started writing all these stories, and eventually the Albert Einstein archives, which are based in Israel at Hebrew University, they started reading all my articles, and they're like, hey, we're looking for someone who is obsessed with Einstein to run our social media. Because they're a bunch, they're like academics and scientists, and it's not really, Twitter is not really their expertise. So they asked me to do it, and so I've been doing it since 2017. I post about 10 times a day. I think he's the most active dead celebrity on social media. I mean, John Wayne is on social media, but he doesn't do much. Marilyn Monroe, she also doesn't post that much. But I try to post 10 times a day, and some of it's serious stuff.
I happen to be the voice of Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, is that you? Okay, we'll have to collaborate sometime. They were actually friends in real life.
Marilyn and Einstein?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
So some of it's serious stuff, like scientific discoveries that people are making. The Nobel Prize that was announced last week, the physicist that won it for something that it was a theory of Einstein's that they proved. So it's still happening.
One of the things
today.
Benyamin told me that he sometimes does on Twitter is he'll see on Twitter that some low-level scientist, someone who's just working on their PhD or something, has published a paper or whatever, and he'll come in as Albert Einstein and be like, good job, and it makes them really happy. And then another thing is, we know that Einstein is one of the most recognizable faces, and there's so much art kind of made that we sort of know about, but there's more that you don't know about. There's people who are making Einstein cakes in baking competitions, and is it Friday?
Yeah, we have something called Fan Art Friday, where people submit drawings or pictures of stuff that they made that looks like Einstein, and I send that out to the 20 million people.
And then the other thing, then there's this other thing that Benyamin actually had an op-ed in the New York Times about, which is, one of the things that happens is people misquote Einstein all the time. It's like they think Einstein. And this actually just happened. I was at my back-to-school night, and in my son's AP chemistry class, there's a quote from Einstein, and I asked Benyamin, and he looked it up, and he's like, "That's a fake quote." But Einstein didn't say it. But what he did on Twitter was Ivanka Trump.
She posted.
Go ahead,
a quote.
tell us.
This is many years ago. She posted a quote. I think it was something along the lines of, "If the facts
don't support you.
Change the facts," or something like that. And then she said, Albert Einstein said that. She was probably just being, I don't think she was being malicious or anything, because I see, fake Einstein quotes all the time. So I commented on the post. I never said that. And as Albert Einstein, I commented, and I linked to a book of official Albert Einstein quotations to point people in the right direction.
May I just...
Ooh.
Give him an egg.
Wow. Oh, I love this. These are really, really good eggs.
They're giveaways.
Should totally have them. Okay, Ari, how are we doing? Can we stay for hours because you canceled the other event? No. How many questions more do we have?
I have a question.
A few more.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
My question is...
It's like you'll get to ask it.
If you I have this. If you could, you lived this man's life in so many ways.
Question. I'm so excited you're asking.
You want to ask?
No, you ask it at
If
same
you
time.
could be with, if you could be with him for a moment or a day, what would you talk about? What would you ask him?
I was going to ask both of you what you'd ask him, so thank you.
What would you ask him?
He has this great line. It's one of my favorite lines, and I would want to talk to him about this line. He says to always look at the world and be passionately curious. And those two words, like it always sits with me. It's like, first of all, we've been talking tonight about Einstein's empathy for humanitarian issues. And so, like, when someone is curious, it's like you're looking outward. It's like, it's not me. I'm curious about you. Tell me about you. Tell me about your situation. And it's not just being curious. He was, like, passionately curious. And that, like, to me, is such a good mantra for life. And I think we all could use that, you know. And so I would want to talk to him about that, and hoping some of that would rub off on me. What would you say to Einstein?
Wow, I would. I think I'd ask him what the afterlife is like. And then I'd ask him, how would he eliminate hatred and violence and racism, prejudice? How would he teach us? What would he suggest we do to stop this cycle of learning to hate before you're 6 years old? And I would love to hear his thoughts. But I think I know what he might say. I think it... Did I already tell you here what my friend Joe Papp said? I said that earlier, right?
I think so. But you can say it again. Go for it.
Did I tell you the story about Joe when Joe was... Huh?
No, you just mentioned him like in passing.
Joe was like my father. He signed the ketubah at our wedding. He started Free Shakespeare in Central Park and the Public Theater and did many great shows on Broadway, The Chorus Line, many others. And I loved him deeply. And I was on the road doing concerts when he was coming near the end of his life. And Catherine, my wife, was at the house where he was staying out his final days. And friends were over. She related this story to me. And he was laying on the couch, and people were talking, and then he sat up with a kind of energy. And everybody was quiet and leaned in. And he said, looking around at everyone's faces, he said, I see life everywhere, in everything. And then he laid back down. A few moments went by, and Catherine said everyone started talking again. And I think what he would tell us, because my God is Einstein's theory of relativity. The way I understand it is that energy never dies. Therefore, I, in my mind, can visit my father, my grandfather, Albert Einstein, Moses, Buddha, Allah, anyone I choose. Because not in the form we're familiar with, but in some form, that energy from those molecules that made up that individual's being and brain and soul is in the universe. I know light is the same, how many millions of years it travels. And I think he would say that we need to see life everywhere, in everyone, wherever we go, and fight for that light and that life. And I wish he was here, because we need someone that we believe in to listen to. And I know there are a lot of wonderful people trying to say things, but this phone that we have in our hands and the speed of information, there's so much noise. that it's very rare that an individual exists that stops us and we lean into to hear anything he says. And we need that, and I know they're out there. Maybe they were just born, maybe they were born a few years ago, maybe they'll be born tonight or tomorrow. But they will come, and they will guide us, and they will help us.
Maybe they were born on November 30th, 1952, Mandy, because you have been that voice tonight. We really appreciate everything that you've shared with us, and of course, Benyamin for bringing us this book that also brought us Mandy, and you two are quite a pair. It has been just a joy to sit here and watch you guys talk. And I just want to thank Gadi Levy and Ari and Erica at the Stryker Center for inviting us to have this conversation here. And thank you all for coming. It is a different conversation than I thought we'd have, but it felt like exactly the conversation we needed. Please.
And thank Mr. and Mrs. Cohen for birthing.
And thank
Rabbi.
you so much to Rabbi and Rabbi Cohen for the gift
Rabbi
of
and
Benyamin.
Cohen for making this beautiful
Yes.
man to give us such wonderful thoughts.
Thank you, and thanks for the eggs. So you can buy the Einstein Effect in all the usual places. You can look up Peace Now and the IRC on the internet and read their statements and support them. And you can subscribe to the Forward's free daily newsletter hosted by Benyamin Cohen at forward.com/newsletters. And if you want us to continue having live journalism events like this and bringing you discerning, thoughtful, nuanced coverage of the war in Israel and Gaza, you can donate to the Forward at forward.com/donate. We are doing a bunch more events. I'm going to be uptown on the west side at the JCC Manhattan tomorrow with a really interesting panel about looking at the Yom Kippur War and the war we're in now. And on Sunday, we are launching this incredible book called Jewish Priorities, which is a new anthology of 65 essays. My essay is about passionate curiosity. It's about asking great questions. And we are back here at the Stryker Center doing a Jewish Priorities event, I think on November 2nd, Ari, is that right? Anywhere? Has Ari looked? Yes, on November 2nd. We will be back here in this room and some other room talking about asking great questions and other Jewish priorities for the next generation. So thank you, Mandy Patinkin. Thank you, Benyamin Cohen. Thank you all
Jody.
for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us go. Back to the green room.
Mike, it's okay.